Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus, coming at you with another quick hits, this time with Living End, a deck that's unlikely to face something with a ban coming up, as this recording is happening before the ban announcement, or annual ban announcement, and that is Living End. Now, Living End, the first weekend of Lord of the Rings Modern was the deck to beat. It was the easiest deck to figure out with just adding Oliphant and Generous Ends. Trying to figure out exactly how to balance that. You get to cut down on your land count a little bit. And basically, you still get to execute the Living End game plan, which is Shardless Agent or Violent Outburst, cascading into Living End, wrathing your opponent's board. And then the rest of the deck is a bunch of cyclers. You have things like Curator of Mysteries, Waker of Waves, Stroke Riverwinder, Street Wraith, Architects of Will. All put the creatures in the graveyard along with Oliphant and Generous Ent. Basically allowing you to put 15-20 power with a play for 3 mana, and then just kind of winning the game from there. Generally pretty easy game to execute, game plan to execute game 1. Games 2 and game 3 it becomes a good bit more difficult as your opponent has any number of countermeasures. Living In, you have to face both Graveyard Hate and Anti-Cascade Hate, so you're facing a myriad of different things. You can face anything from Chalice of the Void to Voidmere to Drannith Magistrate, Archon of Emeria, to Living End, Endurance, Leyline of the Void. So it really helps to have a smattering of cards in your sideboard for different situations. But the difficulty is knowing your opponent's decks and which variants of hate you could face, hence why you'll see these decks with a myriad of different things. Beyond that, you also get to pair Force of Negation and Subtlety, as well as Grief to potentially take your opponent's annoying things. So, much like Modern Reanimator, you do have some, or not Modern Reanimator, Legacy Reanimator, you do have some anti-countermeasures in your main deck, with Grief being able to strip their threat or their answer before it can come down, Force of Negation or Subtlety, potentially answering it before it can come down, giving you a 1-turn window to get your Cascade spell online. Also, Boseiju in the sideboard kind of helps. This version is a little bit different than a lot of the variants you'll see. This one is by Gabe Nassif, his article on Channel Fireball that we'll be linking below for this video's description. Basically, a lot of these decks settle on like a bunch of 2-ofs and 3-ofs. Like you'll see like 2 or 3 ley lines, you'll see 2 or 3 endurances, like 2 foundation breakers, a force of vigor, etc. Gabe decided to go with a myriad of different things to kind of mix things up. A third copy of Subtlety helps deal with hate creatures and Fairy Time Raveler. Dismember kills a bunch of the hate creatures or slows down things like Ragavan or a Scam Fury. Leyline of the Void, good against anti-graveyard nonsense, Rakdos Scam. The Mirror Match Dredge. Endurance, very much the same thing, is kind of your anti-graveyard tech, clearing out your opponent's graveyard, good for the Mirror Match, etc. Foundation Breaker, Force of Vigor, and Boseiju Who Endures all answer both artifacts and enchantments. Whether it be Rest in Pieces, Ley Lines, any of those kind of chalices, those kind of nonsense. Ingot Chewer, a little bit more specialized, only answers artifacts, but is relevant with Tron being such a heavy thing in the format right now. Fury helps to clear out some of your opponent's creatures, especially maybe if they're playing an Archon or Drannith Magistrate in particular. Blood Moon, you can catch your opponent a little bit, as most people aren't really expecting Blood Moon out of Living End, but it is something you can get them with it on occasion. Anger of the Gods as a pseudo sweeper against some of your opponent, against derpy creature decks like humans or merfolk or sometimes burn. Fable is a little bit of a mid-range card, and that's kind of where the deck is. This was one of the decks going into before the Pro Tour. Kind of slipped down the rankings a little bit, with Tron and Rhinos and all that. However, it does have a pretty reasonable Rhinos matchup overall, so it's a decent place in the meta. The tricky part is Game 1, you generally are pretty favored against a lot of matchups. In Game 2 and Game 3, learning to navigate the hate. The match that you'll be seeing today, it actually ironically kind of plays out that way. Game 1 is very easy. Game 2's Game 3 are very challenging. So sit back, enjoy the match, and see a little bit of how Living End plays out. Alright, back with the quick hits with Modern Living End from Gabriel Nassif. Played the deck at the Pro Tour to a top finish. One problem with these hands, no landers, can't keep. This hand is okay. Nope. Oliphant Aegis Elephant allows us to keep this, put back that. Play Sunken Ruins and pass. Okay, so we might be up against Burn here. Does indeed look like. Okay, so I don't think I can afford to let this resolve, so I'm gonna do that. So decks I think of when I see that kind of nonsense. Gotta get the Steam Vents here. Alright, that enables us to do is Boros Death and Taxes, which they have some cards that are relevant in the matchup, like they play Leonin Arbiter here, we're gonna have to cycle in response. Thalia's kind of annoying, but it's also whatever. Force cycle. Grab a Breeding Pool. Cycle this. Okay, so we have all of our land drops lined up. Play this and pass. Gets to hit us for 2. So I play a very similar deck to this. Could just be Boros Humans too. Cycle this. Okay. Let me just fetch basic island here. And that. Could play Violent Outburst, but I don't know that that's going to be particularly relevant. Again, doing just more power in play basically. And I don't think there's too much that a Boros deck on 2 mana can do, so. Obviously we could have had something like Mana Tide to play around, so. Alright, so I doubt this is in the sideboard guide, but let's take a look at a deck that would be similar. Scam, Omnath, Rhinos, Tron, Burn, Moth, Murktide, Hammer. Okay, so I guess Murktide is an okay example of what to play around. Probably want Ingot Chewer, the Seiju at the minimum. Hammer. So go down the Force of Negations. I guess we can board as if they're Hammer because they could have very similar things. So bring an Ingot Chewer, Foundation Breaker, Fury, Dismember, and Anger. And 1 Subtlety, go down the Fawns. 1 Breeding Pool. Interesting, he actually boards out lands. 1 Waker of Waves, and okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 subtleties. Okay, sure. Definitely has a unique take on. Yep, we have an out to their most likely hate card. Actually, 2 outs. Can fetch basic island. So Turn 1, Giver of Runes, not particularly relevant. So they could be like a Blood Moon style deck, so Sanctorium deck, that's definitely the wrong matchup for that. It will theoretically exile the elephant or elephants, but okay, so cycle this, we'll get exiled. Grab Steam Vents for now, play Steam Vents, and pass. Yeah, I don't really like them bringing in Sanctifier in this matchup. I mean, maybe they don't have much to bring in. Yeah, Archon's a problem. Not gonna deny that. That one's actually a problem. Okay, so Boseiju comes into play tapped. Might actually get us here because of that Archon. Which I should know because I've literally played this card in a deck that's part of the reason why the card's even in the deck is the presence of Sanctifier and Vex. Sure. Just upping the clock. Can cast more than one spell each turn. Sometimes those cards have like random text like sometimes they have random text like you know, non-artifact spell or non-land, you know, that kind of stuff. So I figured it was best to check on that. But opponent gets to swing here. I mean, this is kind of the annoyance, right? I mean, they have just enough pressure on the table to... They just let it go. Interesting. Play Foundation Breaker and blow up Ether Vial. Honestly surprised I should use Giver of Runes' ability to keep it in play. I guess they're worried about some type of answer to Blood Moon. Okay, they do in fact have Magus the Moon, which I'm not entirely shocked by. But alright, move on. Yeah, we'll bring in Subtleties back in and go down. Oh, I could have had the Gemstone card in my deck. That's a dirt on it. 2 Waker Waves and an Architects of Will. This gives us a Fury, Dismember, Anger of the Gods, all those kind of outs to what they got going on. This hand is certainly something. This hand's okay. Keep back living end. Okay, we have another Giver of Runes. Forge Tender, sure. Okay, get Island. It could still easily have shock us in for now, although there's a decent chance we'll have to Subtlety a Sanctifier. Magistrate's fine. Cycle this. Elephants. Grab the only other available land. Imperial Recruiter is moderately terrifying. So I could either get an Archon or Sanctifier here. So we have like a 1-turn window to... We have to dismember the Magistrate and then hold up Subtlety next turn. No, it did nothing. Could fetch basic forest here. This way we're as insulated from Blood Moon as we can be. So buy us one more turn. This is one of the problems with this variant of the deck is you are a little more vulnerable to flooding out a little bit, or not, not having something to draw. They have Mana Tithe too here. I was gonna say, why would you like? Now the opponent has to choose whether to put this back on top or bottom. Put it on top, unsurprisingly. Unfortunately, it basically gets to strip minus next turn and play. Weird deck building choices. Sure. That's unfortunate. Probably will field us during our main phase, which okay, I will gladly play my generous end here. Start attacking with subtlety. Because they basically have double strip mon in play. Yeah, they definitely screwed up and should have done this main phase. Or during our draw step. Caverns buys us another turn to cast some of our spells at least. Subtlety or Solitude, sure. Which ones they get in for 5 here? 4. Fury would be a good draw, except their opponent just gets to kind of ignore its effect. I think leaving these two in play is better than Sanctifier being in your on the battlefield. Not Sanctifier, Forge Tender. And my opponent agrees. So we have this uncastable Grief in our hand, unless we find a hopefully they don't have like a second Solitude or something. Feels like they're going to activate Field of Ruin. Vicious Farmhand. What's this do on the back end? Its form becomes a 3/3 lifelinker, sure. Unless they have Ghost Quarter, at least they can't take us off all of our red sources. Giver's actually a problem. Plunk through the air, we're in a world of trouble. But not even at this point, not even living in really helps us all that much. Interesting that they're choosing to make that route. Because if I have another Fury, they'd be in a world of trouble. Nothing as a Solitude or anything. We're just toast. You have another Giver of Runes? That'd be bad. Yep. I see. So we die. We have a Solitude on top of. Wow, must be nice. Okay, well,